Hello again. Our piece is starting to take shape now, and today I want to start to do the embellishments over the top. So you can see from most of the pieces I work with a lot of similar themed shapes in the flowers. I'm going to do that again today. I have pieces cut out that I'll show you in close up in a minute. One of the reasons why I work with the range of fabrics I do is because it brings texture and dimension and depth to a piece really quickly and easily. It's no more complex to put a piece of double-sided web on the back of a velvet than it is a cotton, but the visual impact, the wow factor, the depth and the texture, the light is amazingly different. So anytime you're doing any form of applique, there is no reason why you can't change it up and use something that's a little bit more on the dressmaking side than the patchwork side. Still use your cottons as your base and interchange your applique with some of your cotton and your silks or your velvets or your sheers. But adding just a few little pieces will completely change the way the eye interprets the piece. I'm going to show you some of the pieces that I've had up on the background in a bit more detail as part of this video. It's really that simple. Once you get a bit of double-sided web on the back of even the most mischievous fabric, it will behave. The double-sided web prevents stretching, prevents fraying. It means that you've got a bit of stability. So even something that's super sheer, like this, keeps its sheerness, but it will sit well on the piece, and it's no more complicated. So I recommend you give it a go. So today I'm going to run you through adding a floral element to our overall piece. Now, so far we've done the background painting with the transparent paints. We've created a lot of texture and movement and detail with the full-bodied paints. Yesterday we added the paper elements, and I will shortly show you the foils and transfer artist paper or tap elements that I've put on this piece. Excuse me. So let's get stuck in and we'll do the embellishment, and then tomorrow I'm going to show you how I stitch, quilt, finish a piece like this. Okay. Here's our fabric, our painted fabric, up to the point where we're ready to start to do the embellishment. And I promised yesterday I'd bring you in and show you the detail with the tap transfers and the foils. So just do that now. There's a lovely metallic shimmer on there. I've popped some of the bees around the big bee. I've got more foils over in the top corners and another bee down here. So overall we have a really complex piece of fabric that will form a great background to the embellishment, but also be a feature in and of itself. These are the fabrics I'm going to use for the embellishment. I've got a silk fabric, a velvet, some felt, some more velvets. These are the radiants. They're 50% cotton, 50% silk. So I've got quite a lot of luster. I have the georgette, silk georgette, and dyed silk georgette there. And these are the thermoformable felt. So we've got our piece. I've prepared my shapes, which I've already shown you, and now I'm going to lay them out and put them around. Now I'm going to start with the shears. And the reason for that is that they make great backgrounds. They have this almost ephemeral effect when they're in the background of a piece. Sometimes when you're using the design elements, you might want to have your darkest, most solid bit at the back so that it feels like it's retreating. But I often just like to have the shears in the background because it gives you that soft, wispy, fading off into the distance sort of look. Now I'm putting these around where there's going to be basically the outside because I want to fill through there with the larger pieces. So I'm going to start by coming down with the velvets and just lay them out roughly. Swap that over. Once I've got everything roughly where I want it, I'm going to iron it all down. And then I'll add in a bit of brightness with the larger pieces. Now these flowers are two different sizes. So again, I'm going from largest to smallest. And I'm just loosely going to scatter these around. And fill in this space so that we've got flowers trailing off into the distance. And the one's a wool felt. Well, I'll pop that just there. And now I'll come through with, now that one I cut off badly, so that needs to go underneath something. Like that. Now I may end up not using every single one of these, but I'll put it all down and position it and we'll see how we go. Once these are all lined down, I'll stitch them in place. That will be tomorrow. Okay, so now that's not quite working, so I'm going to bring this one further in. So I want to cover the area but not necessarily drown it. I'll probably go with something like that, but I've got time to play. Before I do that, I want to talk to you about the thermoformable wool elements. I've cut the same shapes, so I've got the two sizes of the small daisy flower, and then what I've done is I have heated them, and you put them through into the oven. So a little dedicated toaster oven if you're going to do a lot of it, but into the oven. Put it on at about 110 degrees, and you can make these hot and shape them. Now these are 90% wool and 10% polyester, and they're really good for making all sorts of form shapes. This is really basic what I've done today with what you can do with this, and again some more material on this could be something we look at into the future if you're interested. But what I did to make these slightly three-dimensional was I put rice into a muffin tin and then just sat them into the middle of the muffin tin. And then once they'd heated for about 20 minutes, I brought them out and held their shape from now on. And as you can see, I just put stitched them together with a couple of little beads to give them that dimensional effect. Now I probably will only use one, but I made 3 just in case. So I'm going to go through now and iron these down once I'm happy with the placement. One of the things I particularly want to highlight is the painted backgrounds coming through on the shears. That's where they really come into their own, when they've got this gorgeous background coming through. But I'm going to show you more detail on that in a minute with some of the other quilts that I've done. So I'll give this an iron and show you where we're up to. I'm going to just show you some details of a couple of pieces that I've done. Mainly the ones I'm using as show samples or class samples, not necessarily the full array of everything I've ever made ever. But this is a piece that I did for Quilting Arts magazine and Quilting Arts TV on painted background surfaces, and also using different materials. So the background was painted with the Dynaflow paints. There's some painted Velasifix in there. But I just want to show you the luster that you can create with the silk elements. So if you have a look at that, which is beautiful silk, got some shears in here as well, and then compare there where we've got the flat cotton and the lustrous velvet. So the orange on the left is just a cotton, and the purple in the centre is silk velvet, hand-dyed silk velvet. And you can see the difference that you can create just with the texture, the slight sense of dimension. Even though the nap is very small, it looks more dimensional, and of course you're catching all the light. And again, that one is also a silk velvet, and next to it is a fabric. I'm not quite sure exactly what its composition is, but it's definitely a synthetic man-made. And up here we have a sheer. I'll just go in and focus a little bit better on that. I won't spend a lot of time on this. This one was hanging the other day. It's one of the Ricky Tim. It's one I did for the Ricky Tim's interview. And I've got a combination here of velvets and sheers. And as you can see, when we work with sheers, you get all that background coming through. And there's that's painted Misty Fuse in the background. But you can see the details of the paint coming through as well. And the same here. And then some little Yazi embellishments on those flowers. And the detail of the painted background. I'm hoping you can see the sense of dimension you get by mixing up your different media. So I'm going to take you through and show you a bit more detail on a couple of these quilts close up. So particularly looking at this one with the sheer leaves and how effective it is having the background coming through. If I had made these in cotton, a flat cotton, they would have looked almost cartoonish. But because you've got all that movement and activity from the painted background coming through, they look organic and quite natural. And these big flowers are a combination of wool felt, velvet, and some beads. Now, focusing in like this, can you see the horizontal lines I've done with the full body paint? When you look at the whole piece, you don't necessarily even see those. You just see the overall effect. But they give that sense of movement, and all the way through that whole piece there are those horizontal lines of the full body paint on top of the transparent paint. And it really does give you that sense of movement and dimension. It's also another level of contrast because most of that piece is very vertical, and those lines give you that horizontal effect. And it can give you that effect of lots of dimension and depth in the piece. That's the one that I used, the quite heavy gift wrap paper that you can see in those pieces. But the other thing is you can see transfer images, tap images. So all the words, the kanji characters, and the pictures of the cherry blossom are all tap. And then if I come in here, I particularly want to show you the effect that you get with the different fabrics. So the sheers give you an almost ephemeral effect. The wool pink, the dark pink, the hot pink is a wool fabric, gives you the sense of body. And then there's the slightly dimensional pieces with some felt. And that's how that piece comes together. So I'm just giving you some ideas. I'm just showing you these close so you've got some ideas of how they can all incorporate and the effects that you can achieve by mixing up the fabrics that you're using. So here we are. We've got everything ironed down now, ready to stitch and embellish. You can do as much embroidery onto this as you want. You can do as little as you want. I'll do a little bit. I'll show you everything tomorrow. And I have probably decided just on one of the dimensional pieces, just about there, sitting there behind her ear. Now just a couple of things to note. The total piece is ironed down. Some of the velvet's a little bit squashed and flat. People often talk to me about their concerns about ironing velvet. All you have to do once you've finished a piece with velvet in it, if it's looking a little bit flat, the pile has been sort of squashed down a bit, is hold a steam iron over the top of it and it will plump right back up again. So that's the one thing. The other thing is that of all the pieces that was the hardest to iron down, the woven wool, because it is so thick, will resist the heat. So I will often get to the point where I either pin my wools in place and iron them from the back, or I'll get it so it just grabs enough and then I'll flip it over and iron it from the back, because obviously then you've only got cotton between your iron and the double-sided web. So lots of different colour there. I've used a complementary colour scheme, so yellow and purple are the complements and it gives it that pop. Tomorrow we'll finish this off and I'll show you a couple of things that I do in that process, and then there'll be somebody else's turn to take over the sewing group. So I do hope you are picking up little bits and pieces of hints that you can use. I hope you're enjoying it. If you haven't liked us on Facebook or Instagram, please do. We've got a lot planned within this group for the next whatever period, really. We're talking about things into next year and beyond now. So keep in touch with the various designers. I'm going to be giving away a prize once I reach 6,000 on Facebook, so we're getting very close to that. And I'll see you tomorrow.